Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to a very warm welcome today to TCU's webinar. My name is Christine O'Kelly. I'm the Director and Coordinator of the Age-Friendly University Programme at DCU. And I'm delighted to guide you through this important conversation, which marks the UN Day of Older People 2025. The event will be recorded and uploaded to the Age-Friendly University Global Network website and made available to all participants at this morning's webinar. Please feel free to contribute to the conversation, post questions or make comments in the chat feature at the end of the screen. Our focus today is on ageing with dignity, a concept that lies at the very heart of inclusive societies and the age-friendly university movement. We're fortunate to be joined by a distinguished panel of speakers who will help us reflect on dignity from three vital perspectives. First, we have caregiving models from Ireland, a concept which we consider what it means to grow old with dignity and respect in Ireland, exploring the realities of care, advocacy and innovative support systems. Our three panellists are Professor Amanda Phelan, who's with the School of Nursing, Psychotherapy and Community Health at DCU. That'll be followed by Helen Fitzgerald, who's the Service Manager with SAGE Advocacy, and then Dorcas Collier, who's the Chief Operations Officer in Halo Care. Then our second panellist will be the cultural meanings of dignity, and we look beyond the services and look at the dimension of dignity and how it's expressed, valued and protected across Ireland and Europe. And our three panellists on this section is Alison Bell, who's Head of Policy and Programmes at Active Retirement Ireland and Ireland's representative at the Age Platform in Europe. We have Anne Duffy, an AFU participant and DCU representative on the Irish Senior Citizens Parliament Board, and Dr. Tara Byrne, an Arts and Programme Manager with Age and Opportunity. And then finally, we have our intergenerational initiatives, and we'll hear inspiring examples of how music, shared living and community activities can bridge generations, promote well-being and create more dementia-inclusive societies. And our three panels here are Patricia O'Sullivan and her colleagues from Mary Immaculate College in Limerick, with Alison McCarthy, who's National Activities Coordinator with the Alzheimer's Society, and Lucy Cunningham, the CEO of the Homeshare. Together, these teams remind us that dignity is not about care in later life, but also about connection, culture and community across all stages. I encourage you to listen, reflect and contribute to our discussion, where we will bring these threads together and consider what practical actions can strengthen dignity in ageing for the future. With that, let's begin in our first session on caregiving models from Ireland. So, Professor Phelan, the floor is yours.
Great, super. So I'm just going to give a broad overview as a sort of macro perspective of the state of models in Ireland. And at the end of the day, I think after hearing everyone, you can ask yourself, is Ireland the best country to grow old with dignity and respect? So way back in 2011, Enda Kenny on the election campaign at that time said that he believed that by 2016, Ireland can become the best small country in the world, which to do business, to raise a family, and which to grow old with dignity and respect. So it's very idealistic, and Ireland has made some advances in that regard, but I would argue that much more has to be done. So just to look a little bit at things like demographics, you can see here on the graph on the left-hand side, where the blue arrow is, that in terms of Ireland's population over 65, we've actually accelerated when we compare ourselves to the EU colleagues in the 27 countries over 65. You can see that their rate of growth is the green line, whereas Ireland is the yellow line, which has jumped substantially. And traditionally, we've had, one of the reasons for this is that Ireland has had quite a long history. We can go back to the famine, in fact, of emigration. So people who would have normally grown old in Ireland would have emigrated due to financial, political and social reasons, and therefore they haven't been ageing in Ireland. But that is changing. And when you look at life expectancy, and again, we'll contextualize that within the European context, you can see that Ireland, the yellow line at the top, is we're kind of, for women, we're just below the EU average, but we have advanced hugely. So the average lifespan for women is about 84 years, and men are doing as well. but we're still above, we're still doing okay there. You can see that males, their life expectancy is about just under 81 years of age. So when we also look at what is projections going to look like in the future, here we can see that in 2024, we had about 742,000 people over the age of 65. But you can see by 2044, the percentage of people who are between 65 and 84 will have jumped by 65.6 plus percentage. And 85 and older is even a more significant change because life expectancy is growing. The fastest growth rate in all age groups in Ireland is actually people who are aged 85 and older. So how are we going to prepare for that? Because we do know that the percentages in population projections are going to change. We're going to have, there's 15.3% of people at the moment who are aged 65 and older. That is by 2050 to go up to 25%. So how does that work in terms of us looking forward to create the conditions of a good lives for people and creating conditions for happiness for people in everyday life? So so we just move on to models then. So we've lots of different situations for older people in the Republic of Ireland. A lot of older people aged 65 plus can manage independently at home. And indeed, about 95% of our population live in the community. And then as age is a risk factor for ill health. So therefore, as people age, it's more likely that, they will have conditions and multimorbidity. That means that they've lots of different conditions like respiratory or cardiac or rheumatoid or so forth. And people can start to experience that struggling to maintain their activities of daily living, like shopping, hygiene, paying bills, things like that. And when that happens, you can have situations where people are struggling with an impact on their daily life, or they may have family that support, and that family may be the only support for that individual. And we have family with support in terms of statutory support. For example, they may be getting home care packages of some sort. They may have private carers that they're employing. They may be employing someone to come in and hoover the house privately, or there may be community supports that are assisting that person to maintain their independence at home. And then comes the trigger. We have that sort of spectrum, but the middle of the spectrum is poor in terms of the state can only supply so much support. And if your needs become over that, if it tilts over that, for example, something as simple as not having a meal over a weekend, because Meals on Wheels are generally weekdays, or something very minor, then a discussion on long-term care occurs. And people may feel that long-term care is not their first option of choice. They don't want to age in long-term care. But because of circumstances due to their dependencies and due to the lack of facilities at home, they feel that they may not have any other choice but to go into long-term care. So last year we did a study which looked at transitioning of older people into long-term care. The majority of them said they didn't want to be there. And that's not unsurprising. So people are there because of dependencies. Some of the people we interviewed talked about the lack of supports in community that meant it tilted them into long-term care. Unfortunately, few of them said that they were there and living in long-term care, and they definitely did not make that choice, which was kind of a scary situation to be. They had an acute episode, they were transferred into long-term care, and that was their lot now. And those people, when they talked about their daily lives, talked about being unhappy, they talked about not wanting to participate in community. And we know from research that people who make that transition against their will, about 12% of them have passive suicide. So they start to withdraw, and that ultimate withdrawal leads to decline in their health to the point that they die. But we have seen in the programme for government for 2025 that supporting older people to live at home and in their own communities is a priority within the programme for government. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And it was interesting last week to hear on the radio that, for example, Bartra, one home care agency or a nursing home agency, has created 3,000 jobs to provide care in the community. So there are advances being made, but there are conditions of possibility for that home care to occur. So where are we going to get skilled staff? What's going to happen in rural areas where it's really hard to recruit people? So seems to be delaying my moving of the here I am. So just to look at the situation for carers, from the Central Statistics Office, we know that almost 300,000 people in the Republic of Ireland provide regular unpaid personal support to a family member, neighbour or friend. And startling, in 2022, just over 85,000 of those declared that care was over 43 hours a week. So that's way over the average working week. And that's very, very intensive. And when you think about the forms of care, that can be from, helping someone with their shopping to caring for somebody who is living with dementia, who has many complex needs and maybe getting up multiple times during the night and may have continence challenges, may have challenges from nutrition. So it can be quite intensive. And in that 300,000 people, just about 100,000 of them were receipt of carers allowance, which is means tested. An additional 4,107 received carers benefits. So we have to look also about the conditions of possibility for the choice for people through age and place, which generally people want to live at home. So what structures are we placing in communities in terms of support for carers, in terms of statutory support, in terms of services that can really support those people living at home? There seems to be a delay in my apologies. My screen is not changing. So just to have a think about that, I'm not sure why this is happening. It's not. Oh, here we are. We'll just look at the figures again. So the BDO in 2025 looked at the hours that we're currently providing. So the expected older person home support hours were 24.3 million hours in 2025 to about 60,000 people living at home. And when we look at who delivers that, we can see over the years that they're like nursing homes, that the HSC has devolved the responsibility for that care to outsourcing care and paying for that. And we have many home care providers that are private providers at the moment. And the other figures are for children's disability services. So one of the good things that is happening is that we're going to regulate home care, and there is legislation in train to facilitate that. And also the Health Information and Quality Authority have some documents that have looked at what are the standards going to be when we regulate care. But even when you look at those 24.3 million hours to 60,000 people, you can see that a report by Minister O'Donnell in the Oireachtas in May of this year indicated that 5,500 people were still waiting on the provision of home support at the end of 2024. And the longer those people wait, their health may decline to the point where their choice of being admitted to long-term care is one that is critical. And they may feel that choice is being imposed on them rather than that functional approach under our capacity legislation, where the will, preference, values and beliefs of that individuals should actually be tailored to. So these are all the sort of dilemmas that we're currently facing in home care. So we have a spectrum of older people experiencing those different home care scenarios, from people who are independent, who are able to, get out and do things for themselves, to people at various stages in the community of dependence who are relying on sparse or limited statutory support and families who may feel that they're under pressure to deliver and support that person at home. So there is a lot of work to be done in that regard, and also the work of agencies like SAGE and the Alzheimer's Society, advocacy work to ensure that the voices of these individuals are what is heard, not just that they're listened to, but they're actually heard and they're responded to in society. And again, I'm frozen in my screen. So when we look at long-term care, it's the assessment needs that, since Mary Harley introduced the Fair Deal some years ago. So it depends on someone having an assessment needs. When I was a public health nurse out in community, we would see people occasionally actually being admitted to long-term care because of social needs, because they were lonely. Now it's physical or cognitive dependencies that lead to admission. The assessment for self-financing within the Fair Deal, a lot of older people are suspicious of, what is the state going to take all of my money? Is my house going to be gone? And as I mentioned before, about 5% of older people are in some sort of communal care, according to the CSO. Now, that includes people, say, in religious orders as well as nursing homes. The average stay for individual older people in Ireland in long-term care is 3 years. And we know that it's an area that has been regulated by HICWA. And I have to welcome the news over the weekend that HICWA will now be able to undertake inspections for serious concerns without ministerial approval. So that was something that is quite welcome. And just in conclusion, the considerations are to support older people's ageing in place with rights-based approaches, choice and person-centred outcomes being core, and measurement of that. And to look at using frameworks like FRIDA, which is a human rights-based framework, are fair. These have been developed really in the Scottish Human Rights Commission, but Safeguarding Ireland and HICWA support FRIDA as a way of looking at how we made those decisions. Do they have fairness, equality, and various aspects as outcomes and process? Carers, what sort of supports our carers need? Are they very stressed? And a lot of carers are very stressed. And COVID-19 was a hugely stressful time for our caregivers of all ages, because I've talked to carers of children with intellectual disability who, might have had 2 or 3 children, some families, and were expected to educate those children at home for long periods of time with very little support. Community, we need to look at things like skill mix to match the dependencies that people have. We need to look at the supply and demand issues that we currently have. We need to look at having legislation that's comprehensive and policy to support the legislation. For long-term care, quality of care remains an issue. We also need to think about it. People enter into long-term care that we're always thinking of the option of returning to their home. The liberty protection safeguards are in train at the moment, and this, I understand, will be separate legislation from the Assisted Decision-Making Capacity Act. Originally, it was going to be incorporated into it, but now I understand it's going to be completely separate legislation. And community integration of services, so people going from one session to the other, and healthcare professionals being more integrated. And the diversity of the spectrum of offerings that we can offer to support people, particularly in community, needs to be looked at to ensure dignity, choice and ageing in place is possible. And the other thing we need to consider is the consequences of strategic direction that we're taking. So when the government made a decision 35 years ago to really, in a neoliberalist approach, to actually offer people a tax break to set up their own nursing homes, and that the proportion of nursing homes provided directly by the state reduced, there was very little consideration of what was going to be the consequences of that. And again, we need to look at what are the consequences of large corporations coming in and providing care within our healthcare services. What sort of regulation, policy and legislation is necessary? And, what is the consequences of something that is a business and businesses are set up to make money, what are the consequences of creating caregiving services, which are becoming more and more regularized as corporate areas within a caregiving context? And that is me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amanda. That was really super. I think we're going now to Alison. Is it Alison is on next? No, it's
I think it's me.
Helen.
Yeah.
Helen, this share from Sage. And do you want to just tell the audience a little bit about what Sage do, Helen?
Yes, my name is Helen, and I'm working with Sage Advocacy, and I'm the case manager. So Sage are the National Advocacy Service for older people, and we support people in a number of different ways through our information and support service and through independent advocacy, which would be one-to-one support. And our work is guided by our quality standards for support and advocacy for older people, the codes of practice for independent advocates through the decision support service, and our own policies and guidelines, and of course the guiding principles of the Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act. And we are a free and confidential service, and we are independent. So the establishment of Sage came 9 years after the Lees Cross scandal, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with. So that came to light in 2005 following an RTE prime time investigation, so that exposed serious neglect and inadequate care in the nursing home in North County Dublin. So undercover footage showed a lot of patients left in awful circumstances and inadequate medical attention. So from the programme, there was a number of reviews which were done, including the deaths at the nursing home in the years leading up to 2005. So the reports found deficiencies in care consistent with institutional abuse and highlighted the lack of systemic monitoring of deaths in Irish nursing homes. And I suppose part of the response of that then was for the development of initially a volunteer-led advocacy service, and then in later years through collaboration, reform and a growing recognition, I guess, of the need for independent advocacy, Sage evolved into a professional independent organisation. So this is a brief timeline of our service over the last number of years. So some of the key milestones here, kind of how Sage developed as an organisation into the growing need of vulnerable people. So from our establishment in 2014 and then our expansion then in 2023 to support survivors of institutional abuse kind of shows the need for independent advocacy services to support vulnerable adults and older people. So the mission of Sage Advocacy is to promote, protect and defend the rights and dignity of vulnerable adults, older people and healthcare patients. So it ensures that every person has a voice and that it's heard and respected, and we advocate for autonomy, dignity and choice, especially during times of vulnerability or transition. When people are referred to our service, they are at a very vulnerable time of their lives, and there's a lot of decisions that they need to make for themselves, and we support them through that. So their voice is central to any work that we do. So we ensure that the person's voice is heard, and we have 3 kind of main pillars, which is our information and support service. So anybody can contact that service and we'll give information and advice. And then our individual advocacy as well. So we would support people one-to-one through any decisions that they want to make or support them to live well in a place where they want to live. And then our systemic advocacy focuses on engagement with policymakers, public reps, budget holders and decision makers regarding systemic issues of concern that arise from our casework and arise from our calls that we continuously see in our information and support service. We work on a model of circles of support, so we believe in building strong, inclusive circles of support around people. So this could mean engaging with families where possible, communities, local services and professionals to ensure that the older person is supported to live and die in a place where they want to choose. So the person's voice is central to the work that we do. And of course the transition in between settings as well. So I have a few, so this is data from our own service. So on the left there, the red line indicates our calls to information and support service. So in 2023, we had almost 6,000 calls from people looking for information and advice, and that shot up to over 9,000 then in 2024. And then our advocacy cases was almost at 2,000 in 2023, and then over 3,000 cases in 2024. And a lot of that, I guess, was to do with the implementation of the Assisted Decision-Making Capacity Act. And I'd say almost 20% of our cases now is in relation to a decision support arrangement under that act, and in particular in relation to decision-making representation orders. So up to the end of June 2025, SAGE had sent over 700 reports to the courts in relation to independent advocacy. So what that means is we will visit a person whose perhaps loved one or another service is making a decision-making representation order under the Act, because it's felt that that person may not have capacity to make certain decisions for themselves. So our advocates will go and meet with the person and discuss the order that is being made and the decisions that are being made as part of that order, to see what their understanding of the decisions are, if they're happy for those decisions to be made, and if they're happy for the person who's making the order, if they have a trusting relationship with them and they're happy for that order to go ahead. So if the person's not able to attend court themselves, or if they're unable to attend via video link, that the independent advocacy report will be a representation of their voice in the court. So over the years, there's a demand in a number of areas for support and advocacy in nursing homes, in primary care and community, and from hospitals as well. And the complexity of our cases has also increased substantially between 2023 and 2024. So we do see a number of cases where perhaps, as Amanda had said earlier, people living in nursing homes and they feel that they were maybe at a vulnerable time in their lives and they moved into nursing home care, and that's not where they want to be, so they want to move. So it could be a potential deprivation of liberty if they're not being supported to return home. So our advocates will go and support the person and support them to return home insofar as possible. So I just wanted to highlight some of the issues that arise in nursing homes for us, and I've highlighted in red the kind of more common issues that have come into us this year. So in relation to finances, we see a lot of referrals from people where there's concerns in relation to their finances. They're unsure of how their finances are being spent and their nursing home bills are no longer being paid. So our advocates would support the person to ensure that their finances are safe, to ensure that they're happy living where they are, and if they wanted to be supported, to maintain control of their finances. When people move into nursing home care, as I mentioned, they are quite vulnerable, and perhaps finances isn't at the top of their head, and there was, I guess, nobody to support with financial management support, so they could accrue nursing home debt. So referrals come into us to support clients to address that then, or support them regarding their will and preference as to where they want to live. And there's also the financial cost of returning home, where home care packages, there is a massive demand for them, there is massive wait lists, and sometimes the hours that can be approved isn't enough to meet the person's needs at home. So they may be resigned to the fact that nursing home care might be the only option for them. Or we can always look at what other options are available for people in the community if they do want to return home. In terms of legal, then it would be around independent advocacy reports that I mentioned earlier. So we would ensure that the voice of the person is represented in the court if they're unable to attend themselves. And we see a number of issues then in relation to land and property that's perhaps being used or trying to be sold while the person's in nursing home care. And of course, access to solicitors regarding the creation of enduring powers of attorney can be quite difficult as well. We've also supported clients to challenge attorneys that are already enacted, and they may feel that the person's not acting in accordance with their will and preference. And then a desire to return home is a quite frequent number of referrals that we receive every quarter in relation to that. So the person's in the nursing home and they're not happy there and they want to move. And unfortunately, we see it's a lot quicker to get somebody into a nursing home than it is to support them to leave the nursing home. So it can take quite a significant amount of time to support people to return home. And we have referrals as well from people that perhaps know they need to be in a nursing home, but they're not happy in the one that they're in. Perhaps at the time when they were discharging from hospital to a nursing home, that might have been the only one where a bed was available, so they didn't have a choice at that time. So we support the person to look at other nursing homes and see what would suit them and support them then to move to a nursing home of their choice. In terms of the community as well, in terms of financial and legal, it will be the same issues roughly that happens while in nursing home care. In regards to concerns for safety regarding finances, that would be around potential financial abuse, which can be quite difficult in the community because that could be the person's only source of interactions with family members. So they don't want the relationship with their loved ones to stop, but of course they want the abuse to stop. So that can take a significant amount of time to go through. And then we have people asking us about the nursing home support scheme because they're unable to afford care. Sorry. So they're unable to afford private care at home. So they feel like nursing home care might be the only option because, as we know, the scheme is there and available to them to avail of. But as we know, it's not available in the community as of yet. And the home care hours that are available mightn't be enough to meet the person's need. We receive calls from people as well who want to remain living at home, and they might feel that other people are trying to force them into nursing home care because they're not able to support them at home any longer. And that could be for a number of reasons, where families they're working, they have their own lives, they have their own children, and they can't give the hours that the person might need. And there's not that many maybe local services that are available to support the person to remain living at home. And of course, there is a massive demand on primary care services at the moment. The long wait lists for home supports, physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, and all of those services, because the wait lists are so long, the person at home might be slowly deteriorating while they're waiting for these supports to support them to remain living at home. So I mentioned our information and support service. So they're the central hub to our service, and anybody can contact them for general information or advice. And if the person themselves would like to call our information and support service, we can give information and advice to them over the phone as well. And if they're not able to make a referral to our service, our information and support team will support them to do so over the phone. So our offices are 9 to 5, and we've actually just moved offices over to Merchants Quay. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Helen. Thank you very much, Helen. That was really interesting. And it's great to see how SAGE has evolved, because I was there at the very beginning, and it's quite interesting to see how it's grown, and the amount of work that it's really doing in the community is fantastic. Our next panellist I'd like to invite is Dorcas Collier, and Dorcas is from Halo Care. So I'd like to welcome Dorcas today, and Dorcas, the floor is yours now.
Good morning, everyone, and just to thank Christine for the invitation. It's been a pleasure to hear from Amanda and Helen, and they talk from highly informed positions, so it's been an absolute privilege to hear both of them. So my name is Dorcas Collier, and I'm delighted to be here today to introduce you to Halo Care and tell you about our innovative assistive technology platform that we have developed, and how we're supporting older people to remain living independently at home and to age with dignity. So what do we do here in Halo Care? So we support people, and it's holistic support. It's centered around the individual and their home, and is based upon 3 strong pillars. The first one is safety, the second, social and wellness, and our third pillar is around the vital signs monitoring pillar. The care we provide is aligned with the HSE's 4M model, and this ensures the highest quality and most efficient care for our clients. So just to look at the first pillar of safety, and this is really twofold, looking at the safety of the person and then their environment. So first and foremost, our devices and monitoring are non-invasive. We do not use any cameras. It's a wireless system, and it's got full cellular and Wi-Fi connectivity to our 24/7 care hub. To start with, we provide personal panic and emergency devices, like a lot of other competitors, but we have now taken this much, much further, and I'm going to go into that a little bit now. Feeding into our intelligent platform, we have advanced motion detectors, long lie detectors, and door opening sensors. This technology goes beyond basic safety features. It confirms that clients are up and active as expected, that carers have arrived, These devices look at what is usual for a client, and if they see something that's unusual, they provide timely care prompts into our Care Hub team that can act on them immediately. I have many stories. I joined the team in January, and this is an area, I suppose, very close to my own heart, and looking after older people. But I'll just share one from last Friday. We have a gentleman, he lives alone independently. He's got progressing dementia, and he accidentally locked himself out last Friday evening out of his house. He contacted us via his Halo Go watch, which is a watch. He presses the button and we can actually talk to him through the Halo Care watch. And he had locked himself out of the house. Now, we knew he had forgotten, he had an external key safe. So we were able just to kind of, I suppose, reassure him. And unfortunately, it was dark. So we rang, we have a circle of care around each of our clients. So we rang a circle of care who is his neighbour, who came over with a torch. And obviously, they got him back into his house. And then we can see movement back in the house after that. So that's just, I suppose, a story I'd like to share with you, but I have many more. From the environmental side, we monitor appliances and we can detect environmental changes in the home, room temperature, flooding. Again, if a client with dementia leaves the tap on, or what we really notice kind of with the changing light for summer and winter, and with clients with dementia, like you could see them opening their door at 5 o'clock in the morning. We have a super gentleman who's actually very young, early 70s, lives in a very remote area here in the country. And he gets up, dressed, washed, and you can see him at 5 o'clock opening the door, wanting to go to work. So again, we see the door opening, we're able to talk to him on his watch, and I bring him back, to the date and time, and it's too early, and then we can convince him to go back to bed. So that's in relation to all the door sensor work that we carried out. So moving on to our social and wellness pillar. Our clients have a user-friendly, interactive, secure tablet, and it's specifically designed for the older person. And then, as you see on the bottom left of the screen, we also have a circle of care app that people in their circle of care can have access to this app, and they can, keep in contact with the client. So, looking at the tablet, this tablet engages and enables engaging content for our clients, cognitive stimulation. We carry out virtual consultations, and once a day, our Care Hub, and this time is obviously agreed with the client, carry out, it's called a comfort call, or I prefer to call it a daily connect. And the daily connect each day with the client is a bespoke, tailored daily connect. We get to see the client, we get to see their environment, we get to give self-management advice, and to give them reminders about hydration, nutrition, and medication. And the whole, social interaction, and it was lovely to hear Amanda and Helen speak about that. I went into the Care Hub last week, and we have an 84-year-old gentleman living alone independently, and the team were singing happy birthday to him. And, some of our clients don't have a family in Ireland, and, what that meant to that gentleman, for 3 or 4 of the team to sing happy birthday to him, it was very heartwarming to see. In relation to our vital signs monitoring, we have a program with the HSE, and all these clients are at risk of malnutrition, and we provide preventative monitoring. So these clients, they weigh themselves monthly. It comes in seamlessly into our IT platform, and a must assessment is carried out. And then if the must assessment determines that they need to be referred to our dietitian, they're referred to the dietitian within 7 days. And we would see a lot of clients who come home from hospital and they have quite substantial weight loss. So the fact that we provide the monitoring for this we can provide a rapid intervention. And I suppose we really provide the intervention before it becomes a problem. And then our Care Hub team, as part of the Daily Connect, will gently reinforce the dietetic advice. Okay, so this is just an example of a particular day story for a client. The system, the intelligence is built into the platform through algorithms in the background. So the Care Hub team don't scroll through them all, but the system will present them with a care alert if necessary. So here you can see, this day story started at 12 midnight. And we can see that this gentleman, a lot of activity in the bathroom overnight, in the kitchen, the living room and the bedroom. So a care prompt came into us because we knew there's something not right with this gentleman. So we could see the carers coming in the door, opening and closing. At the time, he gets carers 3 times a day. So we were able to ring the carer, and we were also able to ring the COC. And this gentleman has an indwelling urinary catheter. So he had problems with it overnight. So we were able to get in very quickly with the intervention, and he had his urinary catheter replaced. And the system, it's non-invasive, it just showed up. And then we get a care prompt in that there was something not right. He had this excessive activity overnight. So it's just a good example of, I suppose what we see. So this is just what our Care Hub looks like. And as I said, our approach is holistic. And I suppose our unique differentiator is we have the full picture. We're not a fall alert or a vital sign device, but the picture it paints as a whole for the client, enabling proactive and informed support. The Care Hub is the glue at the core of everything we do. And our next phase, we're going to be looking at increased integration. And we have a partner app where, and it may be something that public health nursing might want to look at, that they would have an app so they'll be able to, I suppose, be informed. Like we have a number of clients, they're very vulnerable, and we integrate with the public health nursing team, and they just say, look, to know that when they close the door on their vulnerable clients, that we're there 24/7, and the support it gives them is invaluable. Okay, thanks, Christine.
Thanks very much, Dorcas. So our next section is going to be about the whole aspect of dignity, and I'd like to invite Alison Bow from Active Retirement Ireland and representative for the Age Platform in Ireland to take the floor. Thanks, Alison.
Thanks very much, Christine, for the invitation to share this today and to speak alongside so many colleagues who are doing fantastic work. I am speaking today with 2 hats on. So I'm here representing Active Retirement Ireland and also Age Platform Europe. So just to, I suppose, maybe explain, I'll just go back there to the holding slide, just to explain that Active Retirement Ireland, who I am with. I'm the head of policy and programs. We are the largest membership organisation for older people in the country. We have more than 24,000 members nationwide, and we have over 500 self-organised local active retirement associations, or ARAs as we call them. And Age Platform Europe is likewise, it is the EU's largest network of organisations representing older people. So it gives voice to older people's organisations at a European level in terms of policy making. And it is how we, as an age sector in Ireland, essentially lobby at a European level. So together we essentially connect local experiences in Ireland and grassroots experience in Ireland with European level advocacy. And we are advocating for policies and laws that essentially protect dignity, combat ageism, and promote equality for older people all across Ireland and Europe. So when we use the word dignity, and it is often overused, we often associate dignity in later life or in aging with care. But dignity is a much broader issue than that. And in Active Retirement Ireland, we would often be found stating that age is not synonymous with care. So at some point in the lifespan, all of us will require care, and that is from birth to later life. So we don't necessarily equate aging as being synonymous with care. But in terms of dignity, we have to look at dignity in a lifespan aspect and not just within the kind of care framework. So my background clinically is as a health psychologist, and I would often look at dignity as a quality of life issue throughout the lifespan. And I would say that dignity means being respected, included, and having agency. And that's for a human being of any age. And dignity is something that's expressed in everyday life, in terms of being part of community frameworks, being part of community activities, being able to access services, healthcare services and other services, and having protection in law. So it's also something, dignity is very much reinforced by a country's cultural practices and community norms, and also strong policy frameworks. So that's probably why, even though my background is in psychology and health psychology, I ended up working in policy, because I don't think that we can have one without the other. So it's it's very much interlinked in terms of dignity for human beings, with cultural practice, community norms, and also the policy that is there to support it. So in terms of looking at Irish practices supporting dignity, within my own working life, I see dignity supported daily in terms of, very, very practical ways. So our active retirement associations are very much self-led. They're self-governed. They're organised at a grassroots level within a community. And they provide older people with opportunities for leadership, and also opportunities to volunteer and stay involved in their own communities, and also opportunities for decision making and peer-based advocacy and self-advocacy as well. So, nothing about us without us. Having that voice and having that framework in a self-organised manner means that essentially we can have self-led groups who are self-advocating and not having other people speak for us or on our behalf all of the time. We have Age Friendly Ireland now embedded in county councils in terms of inclusive spaces, lifelong education and learning. And we have, of course, our Age Friendly University, very much in that aspect of lifelong access to education. And then we have community issues like transport, access to transport, rural transport and accessibility issues. And consultation in terms of social inclusion. So just including older voices in decision making is a practice in supporting dignity itself. So just in terms of how we could support practices in dignity further in this country, Active Retirement Ireland are part of the Alliance of Age Sector NGOs. It's a very long title, so we often just refer to it as the Alliance, which, yes, does sound very Star Wars. So we are an alliance of age sector NGOs, as it says on the tin, and that is ourselves, Age and Opportunity, Alone, the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland, the Irish Hospice Foundation, the Irish Senior Citizens Parliament, and Third Age. And we have been calling for quite a number of years now for the establishment of an independent commissioner for ageing and older people. And we believe within the ageing sector in Ireland that a statutory office with a mandate to safeguard the rights of older people outside of the body politic, so an independent commissioner, and that is really key here, so that older people's issues don't become a political football every year, as they do in the budget every single year with pension and healthcare issues. We would like an independent commissioner to sit outside of the government body and to advise, or to have a mandate to advise the government, and to also monitor policy frameworks. Because very often, as we saw with the essential death withdrawal of the positive aging strategy, which went nowhere, very often things are put in and promises are made, particularly around election time, and then we have no monitoring of that policy framework thereafter to see if that has been enforced, or if anything good has come of it, essentially. So having an independent commissioner would strengthen dignity by giving older people a clear voice, and a voice in national decision making and policy making. And it would also ensure that older people's direct concerns are not overlooked, or kind of very often what happens is, in terms of policy frameworks, older people's voices are kind of set into one group, maybe with those who have disabilities, or in terms of care frameworks. So, and as I said, not all older people are in need of care. So we have to step away from maybe hoisting all older people into one big giant kind of leftover category in terms of their voice in policy making. So we lobby at a European level. We also lobby at a national level in terms of dignity in policy. And we've had success in some places. So one example I would give you of how we have lobbied directly through Age Platform Europe at a European level was the Anti-Discrimination Directive. Now, this is a directive with a very complicated name. It's also known as the Horizontal Directive. It actually is known by 3 different names, but I'm just going to refer to it as the Horizontal Directive because that's what many of you who will have heard of it will know it as. And this is, without boring you to tears in terms of policy, it is essentially an anti-discrimination directive, or an equal treatment directive. As I said, many names for it over the years, but essentially it was an EU-wide protection on discrimination on grounds such as age, disability, religion, belief, sexual orientation, and basically any area for discrimination outside of employment. So social protection, education, access to goods and services. So it really is an anti-discrimination directive that impacted every single aspect of life in terms of human rights and human dignity, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others. So its purpose was to establish a minimum level of protection across the EU. And in a slightly terrifying move, the Commission very quietly decided to withdraw that directive last year. And this was because for many, many years it was blocked blocked in the European Council. It was actually blocked consistently from 2008. So a long time. And that's because there wasn't full agreement between the member states on, well, it was largely financial disagreements, essentially around issues like insurance and the impact that this directive had, that the kind of fiscal financial impact this had. So there wasn't full agreement between member states. It sat around for a long time and it was blocked largely since 2008. So they decided to remove it. The Commission decided to remove this directive. And we, Age Platform, the organisations under Age Platform, many organisations and civil society organisations across Europe, then launched a massive campaign to obviously not have the horizontal directive removed. And delighted to say that in July, it now looks, as of July, I should say, it looks like there's been an about turn from the Commission, and they have decided not to withdraw the directive. So it was a slightly long-winded story, but I just want to show you the change that can actually occur as a result of older people's voices and campaigns in Ireland and throughout Europe. So it can feel very, very far removed from, maybe local level grassroots organisations to high level European policy and national policy, but it is not that many steps away. So when we do amplify older voices, it can make a massive difference in protecting dignity and human rights as well. So yeah, sorry, I should have gone on to that slide, but essentially that's a good news story at the end of the day is that they appear to have now backtracked, and they will not be removing the horizontal directive. So yeah, this is how policy and community work together. We would like to have an independent commissioner installed for oversight. We do continue to support our active retirement associations around the country, because community practice gives dignity its roots, but it also gives it protection in policy. So one without the other is not enough. So that's how I see the link between community practice in dignity and also policy on national level and European level as well. And we do continue to face challenges and opportunities. There are always challenges. Ageism remains persistent in some services. And another item that Christine knows that I talk about a lot, ageism is very persistent in our media, in our national media. And also in terms of our health messaging, very often we have very persistent ageist images, which is something that I talk about frequently and complain about frequently. We have kind of ageist language still very instilled in our culture. The use of the word elderly, for example, is something that we would battle against at European level and also national level. I write a lot of letters to the editor of national newspapers, which go unanswered. We also face essentially a decline of intergenerational contact. And that really is leading to growing loneliness and isolation. And I'm sure everyone is aware that Ireland was named the loneliest country in Europe, much to our detriment. So it is that decline in intergenerational work is leading to social isolation as well. There are opportunities. I'm not going to end on a negative note. If we continue to combine strong community practice with national advocacy and European policy to ensure dignity is protected, I think there's hope for the future. But we have to work at every single level of society and also every intergenerational level to address the barriers that older people are facing. And without addressing the barriers that older people are facing, we're not going to address the issue of having a more inclusive society. So there are my key takeaways. Dignity is multidimensional and intergenerational. Irish practices do show respect and participation, but we need to continue them and we need to widen them. An independent commissioner would strengthen national recognition of older people having dignity and voice in their own lifespan and in their own policy making and society. And EU campaigns can and do reinforce dignity across Europe, even if we have to fight for them sometimes. So that's me. And obviously you can ask any questions or share your reflections that you'd like in the chat.
Thank you so much, Alison. And I love your pictures as well. Very inspirational presentation. Our next, we'll move on because we're running out of time for the end. Our next presenter is Anne Duffy. Anne, are you online at the moment?
Yeah. Now, I'm working with you here on my phone. I don't know if you can see me, but I can hear everything.
No,
And
we can't
can
see
you hear my voice?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
All right.
That's okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you very much, Christine, for inviting me onto this. I don't think I knew what I was getting into, but what I came to you originally about was something I was very excited about. That I found through, I'm a member of the board of the Irish Senior Citizens, and they had started to demonstrate it's not a pamphlet, it's a small booklet that the Irish Hospice Foundation printed last year in 2024. And it's all about thinking ahead and planning. And in listening to some of the previous speakers there, like Helen, and the common issues that are discovered that come up in nursing homes is the need to pre-plan and record your choices. This booklet actually helps you to do it before you're in the healthcare system as such, before you're in the nursing home. This is what I like to go through, because we plan our holidays, we save for college, we've house and car insurance to safeguard us about the future events. So how do we make our healthcare decisions for ourselves when we're able, before we're unable to do so due to illness or accident? So in last year, in 24, the Irish Hospice Foundation developed this healthcare planning tool called My Think Ahead Planning Pack, which covers advanced healthcare and end-of-life planning. Firstly, let me reassure you that this is not about assisted dying or giving away your worldly goods. It's about having a conversation with your loved ones and making your wishes known to them. The planning pack lets you write down your choices for future care, which can give you peace of mind. There are three parts to this pack. The first is my personal wishes and care plan. Having conversations about serious illness and dying can be difficult for anyone. However, talking to your loved ones when you are well may make it easier for all. This plan enables you to write down your personal information and choices in case of serious illness, end-of-life care, and after death. This includes legal arrangements like developing a power of attorney, your arrangements for dependents and pets, and making a will. Financial records of your accounts, credit cards, insurance, pensions, mortgage, loans, and any assets. I think very important about all of this is the location of these important documents after death and funeral arrangements that you would like. Now, this is not a legally binding contract in any way, but it can ensure that you are cared for in ways which meet your emotional and cultural and personal choices. So the second part of this plan is the Advanced Healthcare Directive. And this is where your wishes and refusals of healthcare treatments are recorded. and nominating someone to speak on your behalf if you lack capacity. This part is legally binding once it is signed and witnessed correctly. If you change your mind, your Advanced Healthcare Directive can be updated, signed and witnessed again. The third part, my medical summary form, as all your wishes about your future medical care are summarised here. A copy needs to be given to your GP or specialist, medical specialist, to add to your medical record. Now, this is not a legal document. However, it contains significant details from the personal wishes and care plan and the Advanced Directive. Where you prefer to be cared for, home, hospital, hospice, nursing home. Your choice if your health worsens, if you want to go brought into a hospital to lengthen your life comfortably, or if you prefer to be cared for medically at a place that you've already chosen. That may be home, hospice, nursing home. In this section, you mark that you've completed the following and where they're stored, like the Personal Wishes Care Plan, the Advanced Health Care Directive, providing the name and contact number of nominated person to speak on your behalf and include treatment refusals. The enduring power of attorney, providing name and contact number, and your name and contact number of solicitor. Further information and help to complete these forms is available through Think Ahead Hub at www.thinkahead.ie, or you can email thinkahead@hospicefoundation.ie. Is a lot of the, obviously, nobody wants to talk about death. It's not a popular subject. However, I really do think we as a people, especially the older generation, because it may be, we don't know when that's going to happen, that we're going to have a serious illness and need medical intervention. But we need to think of it first of what my choices are and what I would prefer, and actually what you don't want. That's maybe more important to state, and to talk with your loved ones, to tell them, what you don't want and what you would prefer if it's possible to get, because that's the thing that's coming up in what the speakers have said there earlier, especially Amanda. What we would like may not be available. However, we have to make some choices, and you would hope that the person you're selecting to representing your voice will be able to access as nearest to your choice as possible. Yes, I hope the Irish Senior Citizens Parliament are making huge efforts to have workshops around the country about this particular booklet, and to encourage people to think about it and talk about it, but also there are helps available through the Irish Hospice Foundation. You can get individual support to complete these documents, because it may not be that easy. And I also there, who was it now? As we've heard, that other organisations do help people in completing this kind of a document, because it is important to get the thoughts out of your head, tell someone who's close to you, and get it documented. for your own peace of mind. And I think then it's something that, like making a will, once it's done, it's done. You can change it if you wish, but it can give you peace of mind that you've made as much planning. You've made people know what your choices are, and that you've made as much possible effort to have things happen as you would like. Thank you. And I'm really glad to be listening to other people's the organisations they're involved with. And I really think that it's so important that all of these organisations come together. I know the ISCP is involved in that alliance group. But one thing that this organisation would prefer to have is a minister for senior people, a dedicated minister. Because, okay, in the future, the statistics are saying there's going to be more. I'm using the word that Alison doesn't like, elderly people, where we can be seen as a problem. But I think because that's how the institution sees it's a problem. What are we going to do with these people? How are we going to mind them? We have to be our own spokesperson, our best spokesperson. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Anne. It's very interesting comments about the Advanced Directive. And thank you to Helen for putting it into the chat feature there in the chat for people to look at. So our next participant on this part of the panel is Tara. Where are you, Tara? Dr. Tara Byrne, Agent Opportunity. And Tara is the Arts Officer in Agent Opportunity. And I'm really glad to have Tara with us today because Agent Opportunity are celebrating a significant milestone. And I actually started my working career in aging with Agent Opportunity. So I'm really delighted to have Tara here today. Thank you.
So yes, it's really great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Hello, everyone out there. I'm talking from a very different perspective, though it's similar values, I think, and coming from a similar place. My name is Tara, and I run the arts program in Agent Opportunity, as Christine has mentioned. And we are the national organisation which is about creating opportunities for older people to enhance their community and individual well-being through participating in the arts and creativity, which is the program that I run, in sport and physical activity, and in lifelong learning and active citizenship. So those are the three programs that Agent Opportunity run. As you can see them here. The arts program is very much connected to the well-being aspect of what Agent Opportunity is driven towards, and what everyone, I think, probably at this webinar is interested in terms of older people. But interestingly for us, the arts is very much about access first and foremost. So it's about the intrinsic value, as we would call it, of having a brilliant experience reading a book or going to the theatre or seeing something you love. It is about that immediate connection with the arts experience rather than expecting any kind of well-being aspect to it. But that definitely comes with it. So I think that's related to the whole premise of today, which is about looking at dignity and how we can support all of our dignities as we get older. And I think the arts would be seen very much as expressions of our personal identity, expressions of ourselves, expressions, full stop, I suppose, of one kind or another, whether that's expression through dance or theatre or writing. So they carry our stories, and they carry our truths, and they carry our identities, and they carry our dignity. So I think that's really what I'm interested in talking about today. So the whole story aspect of the arts is there's nothing that's created. There's no arts experience or object that's created that's not telling some kind of a story. And that's what we're trying to do with a large part of our program, which is the Bealtaine Festival. So we work a lot with arts organizations in supporting their work. Arts organizations are supporting their work to program with and for older people. but we also support older artists themselves in their careers. And then we also run the Bealtaine Festival, which I hope many of you will have taken part in, never mind having heard about. It's 30 years old this year. It's a month-long festival that celebrates the creative potential in all of us as we age, and that celebrates aging in general. And it's a movement that we hope people will come together and go to events all throughout May. It's interdisciplinary, it's multidisciplinary, it's all art forms, and it's all over Ireland. So it's a massive endeavour for local communities and ourselves. So I'm going to be talking about some of the projects that we've developed through that part of our work. And they're deeply personal stories to the people that were involved in them. They're focused on age, gender, sexuality, and ethnicity in particular in the last 10 years. So I think I mentioned just there that the arts program is about access first and foremost. It's about trying to widen the access for older people to the arts, as everyone should have access to the arts. But for all the reasons that we know to do with ageism, the way some organizations can approach programming can be either very ghettoized, such as this is what older people want, or they're not even considering older people as just part of the range of ages who are going to their organization. So that is a big part of our work, but also representing. And I think the act of representation is really key to dignity as well. It's key to your own personal story and who you are. And as I said, you're telling that story all the time. And when you're at an arts event or making an arts project yourself. So this is just one of our projects, and it was called Everybody Sings. It was by an artist. It is by an artist called Sean Dunn, who's mostly a theatre maker. He's also an actor, but he works with communities, and is I suppose he elicits stories really from those communities, where they might not want to tell the story themselves directly, but they will tell it through Sean's theatre work, I suppose. So this was very interesting for me, because he chose the title. It's all about intimacy, the intimacies of our lives as we get older. And I suppose it's right. It's coming from a place where intimacy is very connected to sexuality, although it's not only about that. But there would be a lot of ageism around sexuality and age, I think, as we would know, when we look at whether it's portrayed much on film, for example, or other cultural expressions, it wouldn't be very common. So he was kind of interested in talking to a group of people, which he met through Alton House in Dublin city centre. I'm sure many of you will know it. Not everyone wanted to talk to him about intimacy, and they were talking about all kinds, as I said, of intimacy with him. But some talked to him, and he made a project that was really beautiful. It was partly theatre, partly film, partly music. And I really loved the title, Everybody Sings, because for him, singing was a metaphor for intimacy. When you sing, you let go of everything. You kind of have to let go of your immediate self-consciousness, and you're relaxed, I suppose. And you show something really personal about yourself when you're singing. It's the same as dancing. So for him, it was a metaphor. Obviously, the people spoke to him confidentially. But it was really important to them that the project represented this is everything that we do in our work. All of us is the three-dimensionality of ourselves as humans, and the three-dimensionality of themselves, talking about their long marriages or how they're a long way out of marriage and now dating in their 70s or older, and what that's like to be dating as an older person. So I think this was really important to how we perceive ourselves as we get older. Another project was called Difficult Women by an artist called Emma O'Grady, and she brought together some really interesting women like Lelia Doolan on the left-hand side, Margaret Darcy on the right, Bernadette Devlin, and many others who are very strong, interesting women who have been activists throughout their lives and have changed things for the better socially in Ireland. And very deliberately called difficult women, because that's how these women would have been seen, obviously very differently to how men would have been seen. And just they would be seen as getting things done, but these women were seen as difficult. And famously, Lily Doolan was called mad, bad and dangerous by Archbishop John McQuaid a long way back, because she was one of those women. But I include this because older women, we would know from research, are treated differently from older men, more harshly in general. And the identity and the vibrancy and the telling their story aspects of these women, it was really important. Again, a role model, I think, how we see ourselves as we get older, and the inherent dignity within that. This is another project we've worked a lot with the LGBT plus community. It was a film that we commissioned called "Where Did All the Old Gays Go?", which was a line or something that one of the participants in the film said. It was his concern, and again, this is very relevant, that the nursing home sector would be a relatively conservative, whatever good work is being done in sector, that he personally didn't want to move into when he became incapacitated or vulnerable. So that was the question: where do all the old guys go, basically? It was a series of interviews with couples that were interested in talking to us about their experiences, and a really beautiful film made by Kathy Dunn, Lore Films. You can see a trailer for it on our website, and I'd highly recommend you to have a look at that. If I had somebody, my assistant, which I don't have here today, they'd be putting the link in there too. And this is obviously, they were talking about the joy. Many of these people, have been on the full journey from an Ireland that was completely unaccepting of and intolerant, in the 60s and 70s, to an Ireland where the Marriage Equality Act came in and many of the couples got married. I'll just move on to the next one. So this very much telling the stories. Another project that we've focused on the last couple of years is the history of the lesbian movement, where we sports project called Unshrinking Violets, which told the story of the lesbian movement in Ireland. That was in 2023, and we were partnered with Outhouse in relation to that. And it was the first time that the whole movement had been exhibited publicly. There's a great gallery in Outhouse if anyone's interested, downstairs. We also have worked with Alan Ormsby for a couple of years, who's a very well-known drag artist. Mr. Pussy is his name, and celebrating him as a performer, and is the first drag artist who gained, I suppose, huge recognition within Ireland, but has had many challenges along the way. And we created an exhibition of Alan's life and work called What a Drag. And this is just a clip of that exhibition. Again, his work and his collection, he has an incredible collection of beautiful clothes from the 60s onwards when he would model. And so this just is his paraphernalia, letters from well-known people supporting what he does. As I said, some of the outfits that he wore, and some of the experience that he's had shown through photographs. This is Rory O'Neill on his left. There were many really interesting people who were at that exhibition supporting it, but it was Alan telling his story. I suppose that's the key thing. And he really wanted to take that exhibition nationwide, but we just don't have the funding to do that. But it is very much an alternative story of a life. This was a project that was commissioned through Age and Opportunity about 15 years ago, originally from an incredible singer-songwriter called Sean Miller. And we adapted it last year. It was one of the most successful works that we've ever done. And it was a song cycle that detailed the story of older Irish gay men, as this is going back into the early 2000s when this story was originally told, maybe the mid 2000s, It toured all over the world. And it was incredibly beautiful. There's still some online footage of the original performances, but we adapted it last year for a 30th anniversary, where we took parts of it and we commissioned a new work from the writer, the singer-songwriter Sean Miller, and this is it, Songs and Stories from Silver Stars. It opened our Bealtaine Festival this year, and it was incredibly beautiful, an updated tale of the journey of older Irish gay men from the 70s onwards. But it really drew on Dublin life as well, because not everyone was from Dublin within it, but there were a lot of stories of Dublin and photographs of Dublin throughout those decades. So it was very interesting for people to see their own Dublin at that time. And of course, fashion and image was really important to this community. So the images were incredibly interesting from a fashion point of view as well.
So, excuse me, Tara. I know you've got loads more. I'm just wondering, could we speed it up a tiny bit, because we're already...
Oh no, I'm nearly there. I've only got to...
Thank you. Sorry about that.
And more recently, we've created the first ever award for an older traveller artist. And this is really a very small start for us. We're going to be hopefully working much more with the traveller community. We have a good partnership with the Pave and Roma Centre. And in fact, Jerry O'Connor is an artist from Wexford who won it. And he's an incredible singer-songwriter. And he actually performed at Cultural Night last Friday in Pave Point. But this, again, it's very important, I suppose, that we're thinking of all communities that we're supporting in relation to older artists. But there are obvious reasons. There's a massive, we know that there's massive, not for obvious reasons, we know there's massive discrimination against the traveller community within Ireland, and we're really keen to help reframe the narrative, I suppose, around traveller identity. Travellers have a very strong cultural tradition, and Jerry is part of that. So I just wanted to finish by, I suppose, what I've tried to talk about today is how the arts is a carrier of our personal identities, how it tells our story, it celebrates our difference, absolutely. And through all of that, it maintains our dignity. And this is something that I don't think Paula Meehan ever wrote. There are many versions of this statement, but she said once in a seminar that she was at, one of our Bealtaine seminars, that if we don't tell our own stories, someone will tell them for us. And it really struck me at the time. That's incredibly true, and actually relates to that hospice document that Anne was talking about. I think that's you telling your own story about what you want, and you don't want someone else telling that for you. So just to finish with, the arts are not a luxury. They're a cultural right. They are intrinsically part of us. We express ourselves whether the state recognises it or not. But we would like the state, I suppose, to play a more central role in supporting the arts for older people who are not, who have vulnerabilities that they cannot get to art centres, and they cannot get to theatres. So we would be very strongly always lobbying government for greater support in nursing homes for everyday arts access. And the very, very last thing is that I see real parallels between the public good of the arts, which means that it can be used by all of us without actually taking away any value from other people. So it's a universal, inalienable entity like a public good is. And that's actually what underpins definitions of dignity. So thank you very much. Like everyone else, I'm really happy to answer questions at the end of this time, but thank you for your ears and eyes.
Thanks very much, Tara. We're going to press on. Would it be okay if we went over 15 minutes, maybe, just to give people a chance at the end, because we're running a tiny bit behind? If you have to go, there's no problem, but we'll keep going. So I just want to welcome now Patricia O'Sullivan and her colleagues from Mary Immaculate College in Limerick. So there you go, Patricia. Tell us all about you.
Thanks, Christine. And I'm just joined this morning as well with my colleague, by my colleague Maria, who's here as well. And Maeve, who she was on the call earlier, but unfortunately she had another engagement. So we actually pre-recorded our presentation just to ensure we captured everyone's input. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this morning. We have just recently become a member of the Age-Friendly University Global Network, which we're delighted about. And I suppose this presentation just shows one of the lovely projects that we've been working on and are looking to build on into the future. So just bear with me now 2 seconds till I share my screen. Hello.
I am Maeve Liston, the Director of Enterprise and Community Engagement at Mary Immaculate College in both Limerick and Thurles. I'm delighted to be presenting our intergenerational music project to you, along with my colleagues Patricia O'Sullivan, Enterprise and Community Engagement Manager, and Dr. Maria Vivarigo, Lecturer in Postgraduate Studies at MIC. The aim of the programme was to create a reciprocal intergenerational connection between children and older adults through a special musical journey of creativity, enjoyment, uniting through music. Through a series of workshops and music sessions, children and older adults experienced the many benefits that music has on a person's well-being. They engaged in breathing exercises, gentle physical and vocal warm-ups, listening to live music using a variety of different instruments, and multisensory musical exploration games. And of course, they sang songs together that were loved both by the children and the older generation. The emphasis was placed on promoting creativity, enjoyment, and connection. This music programme brought together 6 class children aged 11 to 12 years old from a local primary school and older adults that were residents of a retirement home in close proximity to the school. The aim was for both the children and the adults to interact, share stories, and create joyful moments through music. They attended rehearsals and workshops across 1 week in June. Then they came together and they had a final performance coinciding with Cernún in Og, Ireland's National Day of Free Creative Activities for Young People. They presented their performance at a Wellbeing Research for Education conference at Mary Immaculate College. Here are a few snippets of the songs that we sang during the performance. As you can see from the photos, it was fun, it was inspiring, and it was so enjoyable. Here are some thoughts shared by the programme participants. Participants were asked to describe their overall experience. Words such as amazing, enjoyable, wonderful, fun, and inspiring were used. One older person said, "The project was full of fun, wonderful, and filled with love and life in abundance. It was absolutely wonderful, making participants feel young at heart, regardless of the age." Others mentioned the experience was brilliant, fun, and inspiring, and they would like to continue to be involved in the project. Our experience at the workshops and throughout the project, and from the data gathered, the project has shown that it has developed a strong intergenerational connection between the primary school children and their neighbours. It has boosted happiness, well-being, and a sense of community. They really got to know each other, and now they stop and talk to each other on the street. It was a hugely successful pilot project, and we plan for further collaborations and further iterations of the project. All the feedback has highlighted, in particular with the older generation, that they would love to get involved with it again. These are some comments from the older participants. On behalf of us all who had the joy of participating in the intergenerational music project, Míle buíochas. Thank you for the ways in which you connected with us. Our gratitude to each of you for inviting us to get involved, for the enjoyment, fun, and light-hearted practices with Maria, Avril, and Edmund, where we surprised ourselves. So where to next? MIC has established our age-friendly campus since 2022 with a growing age-friendly network of people from all around the city and county that we engage with on a regular basis. The network participates in a variety of initiatives that Enterprise and Community Engagement organises annually. All events throughout the year are accessible and are intergenerational by nature. We also deliver specifically age-friendly events and initiatives. For example, workshops, performances and presentations for our Limerick Lifelong Learning Festival, Culture Night, Science Week, Mental Health Week and the Bealtaine Festival. Bealtaine is Ireland's national festival celebrating the arts and ageing. We include our students in the co-creation and delivery of these intergenerational initiatives. Such examples include, we had a playmaking workshop for the Arts for All Day. This year for Culture Night, we're hosting an intergenerational music concert, which is being organised by members of our MIC Age Friendly Network and our staff and our students. We're also happy to announce that Mary Mackle College is now a member of the Age Friendly University Global Network. We're delighted to be part of this collective and honoured to be sharing and advance its work. Thank you for listening. If you would like to hear more about MIC's Age Friendly Campus and our intergenerational music programme, please do not hesitate in contacting us.
Thank you very much, Patricia and colleagues there for that very speedy presentation. And I know maybe some of you may have to go at 12, but we press on. And our next speaker is Alison. Where is she? Alison McCarthy. And Alison has a fantastic programme she's going to talk about now. Thank you, Alison.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Alison McCarthy. I work for the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland as the National Activities Coordinator. And in context of today, I run our Creating a Dementia Inclusive Generation programme. So the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland, just for a little bit of background, we support everyone across the country in their local communities living with any form of dementia. And we are Ireland's leading organisation in this. So the team I work on is the community engagement team. And we're building dementia inclusive communities nationwide, working to break down the stigma through education, awareness, and local action. So our goal is for engagement in every community engagement in every sports club, and community engagement in every school. And hopefully some of you might have seen it, but our logo's down in the corner, and our community engagement program is Friends of ASI. I'm having the same problem where it's not moving. Oh, there we go. So welcome to Creating a Dementia Inclusive Generation. The program was originally developed with the Dementia Service Information and Development Centre at St. John's Hospital. We are an official Gaisce Challenge partner, so the program can be used for students to achieve their Gaisce Award. And this year we were delighted to be approved by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment as a micro module, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute as well. So I'm sure everyone here is aware of what dementia is, but just as a very quick Cliff Notes and a background, the World Health Organization describes dementia as a syndrome which is there is deterioration in cognitive function far beyond that of which you might expect in biological aging, which is chronic and progressive in nature, and a tongue twister. But the most important words there is beyond what you might expect in biological aging. Dementia is not a natural process of aging. It's not normal. And the other thing that comes up with schools and teachers all the time is the surprise that dementia is the umbrella term and Alzheimer's falls underneath dementia. And then we also have there the other three most common forms of vascular dementia, Lewy bodies and frontemporal. So to get on to the program, why teach young people about dementia? So 1 in 3 young people know someone living with dementia. This is often their grandparents or granddads or uncles, but more and more often it could be a parent. In the last stats that were taken, which was a good few years ago now, but with the new dementia registry, we should have better numbers soon. There was over 64,000 people in Ireland living with dementia, over 4,000 of whom were under the age of 65 when symptoms started or they were diagnosed. It's important for every young person to feel prepared for what it's like to live with, care for, and love someone living with dementia. By supporting young people to understand dementia from an early age, we're raising awareness and reducing stigma. We're creating empowerment through knowledge. We're promoting empathy and compassion, and we're providing preparation for the future, as well as creating community engagement and support. So our program runs in 3 phases. Phase 1 is the online course which teaches young people about aging, brain health function, dementia, and how to support and communicate with people living with dementia. Our phase 2 is peer education. In this, students use a specifically designed booklet to teach their peers about what they've learned throughout phase 1, and it gives them empowerment, and it allows them to own their learning and to be able to share it in a way that then it could be 6th class, it could be 5th years, it could be 1st years. People always respond better when they're talking and listening to someone who's their own age and can maybe share their own experiences that are relevant to them. And then phase 3 is community engagement. So students and schools are encouraged to actually get involved with their local communities, be it through nursing homes, an ASI support group, or a day centre. It doesn't have to be with the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland. Our goal is to include everyone and anyone. And since we don't have a day centre in every single town, we want you to get out there to your communities and engage with any relevant group. So as I mentioned earlier, we are now recognised by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment for the new TY curriculum, which means students have to hit certain criteria. They have to learn a certain amount. They have to grow kind of socially a certain amount. And our course falls into that to support them. And it also brings us one step closer in making dementia education an Irish standard, which is the goal. So this is where it comes into today. How does creating a dementia inclusive generation support creating dignity in aging? So we're building empathy, understanding the physical, social, financial, and cultural aspects of aging fosters compassion for the older generations. The first 3 modules of our course focus solely on aging, brain function, and brain health. It's getting young people to understand that they are one part, like their youth is just one part of it. You know, you're a teenager for 7 years? And then a lot of young people might say an older person is from 60 onwards. You could be an older person for 30 to 40 years. That's a huge chunk of your life. So when young people kind of see that, they're like, whoa, okay, I need to maybe think about this and think about how my parents feel and my grandparents, etc. We change their outlook so young people start to view, as I was saying, aging with greater awareness and acceptance. We promote dignity. With the knowledge, they engage more meaningfully with elders and show greater respect. So they're not as afraid of the forgetfulness potentially, specifically when it comes to dementia, or, you know, they don't just assume someone might be sick because they're forgetful. They understand then that there's a difference between someone who's 90 years old and it's just having difficulty processing things because they have 90 years of memories to process versus someone who's actually suffering from a dementia-related condition. We are creating impact. So an informed generation helps build a society where older people are valued and treated with dignity. So we're starting young, that they will then hopefully, as they age, be able to treat older people, whether it's through care or in politics or as doctors or as scientists, it doesn't matter, but because they have learned something when they were younger, they're able to engage with and treat older people with more respect as they age themselves. And we're shaping perspectives. So learning about aging helps young people see it as part of their own journey, not just something that happens to their parents and grandparents. It's not over here that, you know, my mom's going to get old one day. It's like, wait a second, we're all going to get older one day. And that helps them to kind of support older people. So one of our schools, St. Joseph's School in Rush, that is signed on to the program. We currently have just over 60 secondary schools signed up this year alone, with almost 4,000 students engaging in the program. So one of the schools is already engaging with a local nursing home, and this is just some of the comments that young people had to make. So one student, I was excited to visit the nursing home, but I thought it wouldn't be as lively a place as it was. Conversations with the older generation were so interesting, and I really look forward to each week to my next visit. I was nervous before visiting the nursing home, worried conversations would be difficult, but once there I realized I was wrong, and the residents were eager to talk and share. Now I feel much more relaxed knowing they're comfortable with me. And it was unlike anything I have done before. And I'm glad I went to spend time with the elderly residents, as it was an experience like no other. So bringing young people into these situations completely knocks down the barriers. When I was little, my grandmother was very much of the mind, like, children are seen and not heard. So I played behind a glass door. But that has changed. Like, Ireland has changed so much, but we still have all of these stories. But my niece, who's 4 now, her grandparents are really engaged with her. So we still have these ideas in our own heads that, you know, older people don't necessarily want to interact that much. They don't want to be talking to the young ones, but they do. And the society has changed, and it's just about opening up young people's ideas and our own ideas that we can engage with the older generation. And it's not about being seen and not heard anymore, because we have developed as a community, as a country. And that's kind of it for that. But as always, the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland is here for everyone and anyone, whether you have a little bit of a concern or you're deep into it. You can call the helpline on 1-800-341-341 or email helpline@alzheimer.ie for any dementia-related condition, whether it's a fear or you're already about someone's been diagnosed. So thank you very much.
That's super awesome. Thank you so much. And we're looking forward to collaborating with you later in 2026. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, we have the last person we have talking to us, the last is best, Lucy Cunningham from the Homeshare. And Lucy, I'm delighted to have you on this morning. And it's a very innovative model that you're going to speak about. So,
yeah, brilliant. Hi, everyone. Hi, can you hear me and you can see the screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Thank you so much. So, hi, everybody. And thank you so much to Christine for the very kind invitation. So my name is Lucy Cunningham, and I founded the Homeshare 8 years ago after a few years of research, preparation, and dare I say it, growing guts to take a big chance and leap of faith. So it's a privilege to take part in this very important webinar today, especially to celebrate the International Day of the Older Person. And I want to reflect on the journey of the Homeshare and intergenerational projects in general. And to discuss home sharing, which is an intergenerational housing and support model that is redefining how we age at home in Ireland. We celebrate every day not only the accomplishments of the programme, but more importantly, the lessons we've learned from both perspectives, the host and the guests, the givers and the receivers, and ultimately the community we've built together. So what is home sharing? Home share enables unrelated people to live together for mutual benefit. Home share is a reciprocal arrangement where both the householder and the home sharer have something they need and something they can give to the home share relationship. So I'm just going to read off, I'm sure maybe possibly Christine might be sharing people's presentations, so I'm not going to feel free to read them as I'm mumbling away here. So I'm going to explain how home sharing works. It matches 2 or more people of different generations to live together for mutual benefit. The host, or the householder, as we call them, offers free accommodation to an accommodation seeker, and the sharer, as we call them, in return offers 10 hours of companionship and a helping hand around the home. So the sharer also commits to being an overnight presence in the home at least 5 or 6 nights a week, but very often they're there 7 nights a week. And that's to ensure peace of mind for the householder and indeed their family, and in case of an emergency at night, so they're not on their own. Our sharers are very carefully matched and vetted, including guardian vetting, and introduced to the householder and their family. Each match begins with a 2-week trial period to ensure the arrangement is suiting each participant. And we are in the background making very regular contact and visiting the home every month throughout the lifetime of the Homeshare arrangement to ensure the continued success. So, look, I don't have to tell everybody on here the different crises that our ageing population are facing. So when I first set up the Homeshare, the goal seemed really straightforward. So on the one side, we have the old person and so many different crises that they may be facing, including social isolation, age discrimination, pension stability, and age-appropriate housing. On the flip side then, for the younger person, and the housing crisis, we have an ageing population which should be celebrated, but that does come with its own challenges as well. Population growth, we're in the middle of a housing crisis. We have been for some time, and unfortunately it is going to develop further. So again, the goal seemed very straightforward when we set up the Homeshare. It was to match those who had space with those who needed a home. But as we quickly discovered, what we created was far more profound than an arrangement of rooms and rent. We created connections, relationships, and opportunities for growth on both sides of the collaboration. Our householders, this gentleman here, unbelievable. I know he's very happy for us to talk about him. He's 96 years young. I'll be going to his birthday party this Saturday. He still goes out maybe 3 times a week cycling his bike at 96. And he has just flourished since he started home sharing with us 6 years ago. Sharers, on the other hand, they are anyone looking for accommodation. I'll go into that a little bit more, but this picture that you'll see on the screen, it's Sarah, the lady here, she home shared for about 4 years before she passed away, and those were 3 of her sharers. They became a little family unit with each other. So in terms of the what we've learned and what both parties in home sharing gain, from the perspective of the home providers, those who open their doors and their hearts, the experience has been transformative. Many of them want to share their homes because they're feeling lonely and socially isolated and are often nervous living alone, especially at nighttime. Many of them live with dementia or a cognitive impairment, and their families are extremely worried about them living on their own. But they all have one thing in common. They have extra space in their homes. But they discovered that what they gained in return was far greater than what they expected. They learned patience and adaptability and the art of letting someone new into their lives and daily rhythm. They rediscovered a sense of companionship as well as purpose. For some, it meant hearing laughter in their kitchens again. For others, it meant seeing life through fresh eyes, learning about new cultures, new habits, and even new recipes and TV programs like Love Island, believe it or not. Who knew in your 90s, apparently, you can still enjoy Love Island and even Married at First Sight. The greatest lesson for our providers was that sharing space does not mean giving something up. It means gaining something deeply human. And then on the flip side, from the perspective of the home sharers, those who joined these householders, the lessons were just as powerful. Many arrived with hopes and uncertainties, and sometimes anxieties about stepping into someone else's space. But through the guidance of the home share They discovered stability, dignity, and belonging. They learned resilience and the importance of communication. They realised that home is not just four walls. It's about trust, respect, and mutual care. For many, the experience wasn't simply about finding a roof over their heads and having the opportunity to save money for their own future, home or education, or even having a safe place to live after a relationship breakdown. But it was about them finding a community that believed in them and appreciated them. So together, through the collaboration of home sharing, both perspectives have taught us something universal. When we break down the walls of isolation, when we choose to share rather than separate, we create environments where everyone can thrive. We've also learned that collaboration is not always effortless. There are challenges, navigating boundaries, balancing expectations, and respecting differences. But within these challenges lies the heart of growth. Each conversation, each compromise, and each shared meal became a small but powerful step towards understanding and mutual appreciation. What has been most striking is the mutual nature of the learning. The hosts didn't just teach, they also learned. The guests didn't just receive, they also contributed. In this shared journey, both sides discovered that generosity and gratitude are not one-way streets. They flow back and forth, strengthening the foundation of community. So as we reflect today, I want us to remember that home sharing is not just a project or a program. It is a living example of what happens when people dare to reimagine housing and support, to remain living in their homes as they age differently, when they look beyond transactions and see relationships, and when they replace isolation with inclusion. The collaboration of intergenerational cohabitation has taught us that the solution to many of our challenges lies not in building higher walls, but in opening more doors. It has reminded us that a home is not just where you live. It's where you connect, where you learn, where you grow, and most importantly, where you feel safe. Other lessons learned are that sharing is not a sacrifice, but a strength. A little help means a lot of independence. That community is built one relationship at a time, and that the simple act of welcoming someone in can ripple outwards, touching not just two lives, but entire neighbourhoods, entire cities, and entire societies. So to finish, I'm just going to go through some of the statistics which highlight the incredible impact Homeshare is having. 94% reached out to us looking for overnight security, and this is with the older person. So this is the reasons why they wanted to Homeshare. 94% because they were looking for overnight security. 56% were experiencing loneliness and social isolation, and 39% of our householders had a diagnosis of dementia. The results of home sharing for householders have been phenomenal. 100% experience a positive impact on their lives. 94% feel more comfortable at home. 83% a greater sense of purpose and fulfillment. 89% feel greater peace of mind and feel more secure at night. 61% experience more mental stimulation. And from a financial savings perspective for governments, there is a 50% reduction in falls and a 41% reduction in hospital admissions. And for our sharers, our statistics are equally impressive. 71% of our sharers were able to save, and 50% of those who saved, they saved they saved for a deposit to buy their own home, something which is impossible to do in today's housing climate. Home sharing also helped 21% of sharers pursue further education. Again, something that many people cannot afford due to housing and the cost of housing. 64% of our sharers told us that they provided assistance in an emergency. And if they were not present in the home, the older person would no doubt have been alone all night, possibly on the floor all night, and their condition would have worsened. 36% of our sharers told us that they themselves experienced a reduction in their own loneliness. And 100% of our sharers believe that intergenerational cohabitation is a positive experience. So to finish off, I'd like to quote Maya Angelou, who told us, "The ache for home lives in all of us, the safe place where we can go as we are and are not questioned." Homeshare is more than housing. It is a promise that no one is too old to be valued and no one is too young to be without guidance. So hopefully through intergenerational living, we can make that safe place a reality for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lucy. It's a very inspirational work you're all doing. I think this webinar explored dignity as a cornerstone of aging and intergenerational engagement, with a focus on autonomy, decision-making and the frameworks that support them. Our speakers here this morning examined how regulation and policy both protected rights and expanded choices, while also addressing the consequences of unmet demand and limited service provision. A spectrum of care models was highlighted, from the innovative approaches such as the Homeshare to community-based supports showing how agency, technology and strong policy frameworks enhance quality of life and dignity of older people. Discussions emphasised the importance of safeguarding dignity through law, the need for independent ombudsman mechanisms and the value of ensuring choice across the lifespan. Art and cultural expression were presented as universal representations of dignity, celebrating difference while fostering inclusion. Through an intergenerational lens, I think we've challenged ageism at both ends of the spectrum and promoted shared learning and solidarity. Ultimately, our event here showcased how communities have harnessed creativity, innovation and policy to deliver respectful, empowering and dignified models of care and engagement for all. I want to thank all of our speakers this morning and apologise for going over. And I also want to thank all the participants for holding out and staying with us for the day. I'm sorry we didn't get more of a chance to discuss more aspects of it, but I think it's been very, very worthwhile and a wonderful morning. And I want to thank you all for your participation. And we'll be sharing the presentations and the recording later on this week. So thank you very much. Take care and goodbye for now. Thank you.